Through every trial, you give me strength. In every storm, your love sustains.
Hi, Sabrina.
Hi.
Thank you for being here today to talk about your story. We're talking about unshakable faith. We're talking about a breast cancer survivor's story when it comes to unshakable faith. So, again, thank you for being here and go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name is Sabrina Banks. I am 54 years old. I am a mom, a wife, and a grandmother. I have three daughters, and I'm the grandmother of five little ones. So,
Okay. And how did you first find out you had cancer and what was your initial reaction?
well, I first found out that I had cancer. I was actually lying down in bed and just, I don't know if I can't remember if I was adjusting my strap to my gown and I just kind of start feeling around. Felt something, that was a little unusual. I felt an area in my breast before back in 2011, but this was 2018. And so it felt different. And so I got concerned. I even remember asking my husband, "Hey, feel this? What you
Mm.
think about that?" Of course, he was like, he didn't really know, either. But so that was my first initial, knowing like, okay, what is this? So that was a Sunday, and that Monday I made an appointment. Called a doctor. I didn't have an appointment that particular day. However, it may have been a couple of days later. Went, got the appointment, talked with the doctor. She felt it, and of course, knew we needed to go further. She got me in with the mammogram. I got that. I had an ultrasound, and initially, well, they did a biopsy, I think, on site at that time, and I think it took a couple of days to get it back, or maybe even a week. So when they got the results back, it said that it was negative for cancer. They was like, yeah, it's it is a lump. I mean, it is a mass or whatever, and it's not cancer. It's benign, but we do want to take it out. So I was like, oh, okay. So that'll be, like what they call a lumpectomy. So they're just gonna take that out and then take some of the tissue from around the area out. And I was like, okay. And it was like, yeah, and that'll be that. So I got that done, and then I remember going back to the doctor because I was off from work, so that was good. That was a little perk. They was like, "Oh, okay, it's not cancer." So I'm thinking I'm getting me a little short vacation, a couple of weeks, and all of that. So I go back when it was time to do my post appointment for follow up to get my clearance to go back to work. The doctor came in and he looked real concerned.
Mm.
And this guy is like a little jokester, type guy. I'm looking at him like I could just feel his energy because he just felt like it was like cold and almost nervous. And he just said, I just don't know how to tell you this. He said, but I got the results back, and it is cancer. And I just, yeah, I remember sitting on that little table that they have, and then you have the little plastic looking little cloth or whatever over you. And just, I mean, I was stunned. I didn't know what to do, what to say, because at this point they told me that it was benign. And so I just thinking I'm going back for a clearance to go back to work. So I was by myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sitting there like I was too stunned to cry. I remember, but it took me a while to get it together. I think the doctor was just so concerned with what, the way that I was reacting. I wasn't acting erratic or anything like that, but I was just so distant, like I was just in shock.
Can you
And
think
so
about what was going on in your head at the time? I know you couldn't verbalize, couldn't think of what to say. You felt shocked, but can you think about what you were thinking at the time?
at the time I was just thinking like, oh Lord, what does this mean? What this gonna look like? I'm gonna tell my family, I'm gonna tell my husband. And I just was in shock, just kind of more so thinking like what does this mean? What does this gonna mean for me and my family and my health, moving forward? Because
Yeah.
at that point, I don't know, I know it's cancer. I don't know if it's what stage, because it's just the general diagnosis that it was cancer, but of course they don't know a stage. They don't know how long. They don't know how long it's been there or anything like that.
Right.
So that was my initial concern, like, because then I kind of asked the doctor. He's a surgeon, so he didn't know that much. He was just like, oh, you can have radiation, you can have chemo, things like that. He didn't know either, but he, unfortunately, it was a situation where he had been off from work himself. Like I think he would have called me prior, but when he did my surgery, I think that was his last surgery for that week, and then he went out on leave
Yeah.
himself. So it's almost like we was out on leave at the same time. So when he got the information, it was, I mean, that morning, just like I got it.
Mhm.
So a lot of times how the doctors do, they grab the chart and they kind of read it a few minutes before they come in. So he had literally got the information himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think that was a little shocking to him because he knew, that it was, supposed to have been benign from the biopsy
Right.
prior.
Right. And so then ultimately you have to tell your family, right? And we're family, we're cousins.
Yes, yes.
I learned some of these things, not maybe as detailed, but what happens next when you have to share this information with your husband, with your children?
Yeah. So when I came, I literally drove myself home. I don't know, for some reason I just didn't want to worry him. Like
Mhm.
I got myself together. I put my clothes on, and that doctor, he was, concerned. So he made sure his assistant or his nurse made an appointment for me the next day to see an oncologist. So
Mhm.
I was like, okay, that's good. I have that on the books. It's scheduled. So I made my way home. It's probably about a 15, 20-minute drive from the hospital or my doctor's appointment to home. But it's funny, I didn't call my husband. I called one of my girlfriends that live in Atlanta. Her name is Antoinette, but we call her Nettie. That's her nickname. And I just talked to her because I know she's God fearing, and I just know, we've been knowing each other for a long time since we were both 21. And so I called her, and she just reassured me, and just I don't even know, I can't even remember the conversation,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I just know that she's a person of faith. And I just needed that to get home. Like I just, because I knew if I called my husband, I would probably break down.
Yeah.
And I knew I needed to get home, safely. I didn't want to, just get distracted and have an accident. So I knew that she would, just really keep me focused and reassure me, so that I can get home. And we talked the whole way there. And
Yeah.
then I remember hanging out with her coming into the house, and I, told, him, and he saw me looking like just really, like, a blank look on my face. And he was like, what's going on with you? So I told him about the diagnosis, and he was confused. He was like, wait, what? I thought, it was benign, or well, he didn't use benign. He said, I thought it was, wasn't cancer. And I was like, yeah, he was like, how did that happen? I was like, I just really don't know. So nonetheless, I told him, we have an appointment next day. Um, and all of that. That's how I told him. So he, we talked about it. Now, my other two girls, both of them lived out of town at the time. Taryn, I called her. Of course, she's young adult, so she kind of was kind of feeding off how I felt. If I went like, oh, I'll be okay, and all of that, just reassuring her. So she was kind of okay. She didn't, she kind of like, well, if you're okay, I'm okay. And then I talked with Sheree, my oldest, and she prayed for me. She prayed for me on the spot, and just really honed in on that, and was like, reassured me, God, got you. So all of that was just helpful to go through the night. And then of course, then I had Kennedy. She was 4 years old at the time, and that was a real concern for me. And it was scary because I thought about her. I'm like, Lord, this, child is just 4 years old. So, of course I didn't tell her, but,
Yeah.
cause she didn't understand, but that's kind of how I, got it out to my immediate family, and then I just, kind of called my auntie Betty. She's since went on to glory, but I talked to her, and she was reassuring as well. And then I did talk to Lainey, which is my mom's other sister,
Mm-hmm.
and Auntie Lainey was just like, and I call her, I don't even call her Auntie Lainey, but due to the I call her Lainey, but she's my auntie. But she just really, I remember Lainey just, you talk about unshakable, unbreakable faith. She just, I mean, without like, she just was like, oh, you're gonna be fine, like nothing. I'm like, I just tell you, like, I have cancer.
Yeah.
And she just like, she just off the bat, she didn't even like, almost like, no, we're not gonna not even entertain that. We just, it's gonna be good. And then I was puzzled, like, Jesus, what she know? I don't know, Got me thinking, like, I guess so. I guess we good. If you say we good, you that confident. Then, hey, that's good enough for me. And then, I remember calling Alice, your mom, because of course, we're very close. Alice, she's, sometimes she can be a worry word, especially, for the ones that she loved. And she saw my mom pass, she lost my mother, and they were close.
Yeah.
So I was, a little nervous because I didn't know, I didn't want that to worry her, because that's just her personality.
Yeah.
To worry a little bit about her family. But she said she was good. Now I can't, testify to, how it was when she get off the phone, because I know her, she, kind of like one of them, oh, I'm good, but I don't know. I just worried about her, but I know she was, there with you and Smokey and her family, because I can't remember. I can't remember if she was in Texas or Virginia at the time. I want to say Texas.
Mm,
2018.
yes.
Yeah. So
Yep. Texas.
so yeah, I think she was in Texas.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I did that, and I just I mean, it was a hard night. It was a long night that night.
Okay.
Just in your mind.
Yeah. So you called on a few family members, you talked to your friend, you have a lot of people praying for you, pouring into you, and now you go on and you go through this journey of medication, chemotherapy. What's the next step for treatment?
So it was an early detection. God is just so good. I so they did the surgery, and I had maybe like one other surgery. I had three surgeries. First, it was a lumpectomy, and then the doctor, they call it, they was, because initially when they went in, they didn't think that it was cancer, so they didn't meet what they called the margin. So the doctor wanted the oncologist, because by this point I had already seen the oncologist, and so he was like, no, I want him to go in and meet and go outside the margin, which is going out further into the tissue, and gathering more tissue to kind of see where, at what point, how much cancer is in. And so when they did the second surgery, it was still cancer there. Like they didn't get, it still went out the margin, which means they was like, at the second one, once those results came back and it was still more cancer, he was like, you know what? We recommend a mastectomy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did. So I had a surgery in October of 2018. I was actually diagnosed for cancer on October the 1st, which is breast cancer month. And then I had one in October, November, and then I had the major mastectomy. I had a double mastectomy in December.
Okay. And what
So
was that like?
that was scary. I'm sorry. I'll just go back just a little bit for that. That's all right. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the surgery. So the surgery, the double mastectomy, was very scary. because I had tubes coming from, but I had a mastectomy along with, they call it reconstructive surgery. So
Yeah.
they take like build breast from the tissue from your stomach and give you like a tummy tuck, and then they kind of make breast. I went That surgery was a 10 to 11 hour surgery, and that was scary. It was scary, but then it wasn't scary. It's almost like I had gotten to the point where I just knew God had me. It was just a unexplainable faith or non-fear. I mean, I don't remember dying. I mean, I don't remember feeling scared to die. Like
Hmm.
I knew I was gonna be okay, but I also knew the risk, especially with a long surgery like that, anything can happen.
Yeah.
And I just remember being so okay with it. Like I was like, Lord, if you take me, that means I'm supposed to be with you. And
Hmm.
if I'm here, then I'm supposed to be here, and I have a purpose. You have a reason for me, being here. So I
Yeah.
did have 11-hour surgery, and I remember coming out of surgery and it being, my friend, it was Alice and T. Yeah, she was very instrumental as well. Alice was here with me, and then one of my friends, the same one that I talked to, she had came down. So the three of them were there with me
Hmm.
at the hospital, along with Ephraim and I think it was those four.
Hmm.
So when I came out, they all said, "Girl, you just like," I had a smile from ear to ear. But I remember experiencing, like, when I saw them, I knew, I was like, "Oh, I made it!" Like I really knew, like, and I was so happy. Like I was like, "Oh, God spared my life." Like I was just so grateful. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be here, and it was just a good feeling because you just don't know. But I remember having a comfortable feeling with, if it's meant for me not to, then I know where I'm going.
Yeah. So where
I can't explain. I still can't explain that to this day.
Yeah, I was going to say, where does that faith come from? Where does that like reassurance that everything is going to be okay, or even if you passed away, things are fine? Where do you where do you find that strength? How do you get that? How do you get there?
You know what? I mean, just those months, just brought me to so many levels. I remember praying. I remember fasting. I remember, reading my Bible, more, and just really developing, a better and a stronger relationship with God. And I mean, I was raised in the church, as you were too, and most, all of our family, but I don't think I had ever experienced any adversity like that. Like I just hadn't experienced that. And so it was just almost kind of like hard to explain,
Yeah.
but it was just weird, sense of calmness. Just like that was just in me, that just came over me. And sometimes at night when I was, by myself, up at night, the devil is real.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "Oh, what?" My mind be like, "Oh, what?" What if they open up? This is before the surgery. What if they, hey, when they do the surgery and they open up and you just riddled with cancer, and they just have to close you up, and you just, gonna die. And I mean, just crazy. I mean, it sounds crazy, but the devil is real, and he wants to shake that faith. And I just remember, I would say a prayer, "No, devil," I mean, I had a prayer that I would say that would just, nope, nope, that's not what God promised me. That's not what God had for me.
Mhm.
And I just remember tapping into that, anytime those, negative thoughts or doubt come, my way or in my thoughts. And I don't know. It's just God just really had me.
Did you ever at any time slip into any dark spaces? Did you ever experience any depression, or maybe not even depression, but just sadness or anything of the sort?
a lot of times, not for a long period of time, because not really depression, but I think I went through a lot of small little areas, how almost like the grief process, how they's like, oh, you're at this stage. So I went through, a lot of different stages, and, like, then except for the anger, for some reason, I was not angry. I didn't doubt God, like, why me? Like, that's one thing I never, because I just always remember, sometimes, people say, or I've heard, growing up in the church, what's a test without a, what's a testimony without a test? And I just felt like this was my test, and even if I didn't make it, then, God have something on the other side for me. So I just went through that, and I just kind of, prayed through it, and just had that faith, just kind of like I said, it's kind of a lot of times hard to kind of put in words. Yeah.
Okay. And if somebody's going through a health crisis right now, what would be your advice? Going through what you went through yourself, having to dig deep, um, use your faith, and standing on firm foundation of what Christ meant in your life, what would you tell someone else?
I would just develop sometimes people, a lot of times people do have a relationship with God, but I just would say, just really tap deeper into that, relationship. Just really get to know him, allow him to get to know you, just or he know you, but just give him your all. And I just really had to surrender. I just knew that this was bigger than me. And I just tell people to keep the faith, and I just do what I feel like now for my afterlife, or just kind of like after cancer, just kind of do. And I always say, oh, I do my possible, and I trust in God to do the impossible. So do your possible. Read the Bible, get closer to him, talk to people. Sometimes you just never know. Sometimes you're you talking to them, sometimes you tell them your story helps them, and vice versa. So I'm a real people's person. For me, talking with different people, and just, people of faith, and, family and friends, and just to keep you encouraged, like stay around positive people,
Yeah.
is what I would say.
What scriptures do you use to keep you motivated, keep you encouraged? Do you have favorite ones, go to, even if you don't know the scripture itself, what words do you say to yourself? Like, we know God is not giving us the spirit of fear, but you may not know what scripture it is, but it's certain things that play
Right.
over and over in your mind.
Yeah, and for a minute, I did, remember some, and I don't know the scripture, but I did do, fear. I would look up fear. I would look up faith, and different, scriptures like that. And, I did. That was a strong one for me. The fear. God didn't give you a spirit of fear, but of a sound mind. Kind of like that. And at one point I did remember the whole thing. And so I would just say those. And when I didn't remember them, I would just, go to them. So definitely, God is there. We just have to, make sure, we reach out to him, and know we're there. Know he's there for us.
Yeah. Did you find purpose in all of this? When you look back over the journey and you said, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I had reconstructive surgery, had all kind of things happening. What was the purpose? Did you already find what that is, or are you still seeking that?
You know what? I feel like I'm still seeking it. I don't know what God have in store for me regarding this. I do feel like that there's a bigger purpose than what, I mean, I'm getting to that. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I said that I, just kind of wanted to, I know one of the things, I take that back. One of the things is health.
Mm-hmm.
For me, a health journey has been big, and sometimes I be wondering like, oh, maybe I should, do something with like a breast cancer ministry. But, I'm really strong into like health, because I feel like health is wealth. And
Yeah.
so I think, sometimes you just never know what your ministry, may be. But for right now, I think that I'm just honing in very strong into like the health of, cancer, breast cancer, and kind of educating women on the different kind of cancers and foods
Yeah.
and nutrition that, help fight that.
Yeah, because you made a lot of changes in your life. I don't know if you did you say your age? You did say your age earlier, right? And you want
Yeah,
to say your age
54.
again?
54.
54, right? And you look all
Yeah.
of 24. But if you talk about the nutrition and the exercising, I watched you change a lot. You changed you don't eat meat anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So I'm a pescatarian. I do eat like salmon. I do eat,
mhm,
some fish. Um, but for the most part I eat, like more plant-based. Like I just really watch labels. Sugar, I still like everybody else, I struggle with the sugar,
mhm,
but I just really educated myself on that, weight, exercise. I exercise 30 minutes, daily. Um, and I juice, I do smoothies and all those things like that. And I mean, I'm forever just, educate myself daily
yes,
on that.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for just having this conversation and being so brave to come online and just talk about your faith walk in this journey for you. I know you have a story to tell, and I know you have more of it to tell. And I can't wait to see all the things that you do in the future as you go on and continue to educate women on breast cancer, all of the awareness. But you are the perfect person for it because you have the light in you, and people feel comfortable talking to you. You have so much to give, so much to offer. So I know a lot of that purpose that God gave you was to be able to give back to other people who would be going through the same thing. Because if it was going to be anybody, why not you, right? Somebody who's
Yeah.
strong,
Yeah.
somebody who's courageous. You've been through a lot in your life, and
Right.
this was just another one of those things. So
Yes.
yeah. So thank you. Is there anything else you want to say? Like if you went back and you talked to that person the day you were diagnosed with cancer, what would you say to her at that time? Now that you know what you know.
I I I would just tell that person, just don't worry, God got you. You do your possible, and again, let God do the impossible. So do what you're supposed to do. Read your Bible, get close to Him, and just let Him do what He do.
Yeah. So Auntie
So
Laney was right.
yes, she was. I don't even know if I ever told her that. I don't
Oh
know. I
wow.
mean, but that just really to this day, I just like, what she know? I don't know. So, and it almost kind of like, reassured me, like, okay, I
Yeah.
guess,
This guy got it.
hey, if she said,
Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
So,
she'll watch this video and she'll see that. Oh, dang.
and I just tell women to just make sure you do your breast exams and just really do your possible, which is do your breast exam, go for your mammograms, do your
Yeah.
exercise, eat as healthy as you can. You may not be, other people may be doing this, that, or the third, but may not can do that, but do what your possible is, to just get a little healthier. And sometimes that does not mean, I tell people, just because you don't eat meat and you vegetarian, you pescatarian or whatever it is, that doesn't mean cancer is not gonna, you may not ever get it because you're doing that. But that's your possible. That's something that you
Yeah.
can control. And so that would be your possible, and we trust in God to do the impossible.
Okay. Well, I thank God for you and God bless you.
Thank you.